All right. Welcome, everybody. This is Invictus Communication. Mark Angelos. Got a quick run through here on selling with emotional intelligence. I did a training class last night, and I was asked a question about selling with emotional intelligence. Apparently, as AI is creeping into sales, as we know, it is changing the sales game. Not just in terms of the automation, though. It's changing the sales game in a lot of ways we're going to run through tonight. So shout out to the folks on Instagram. Thanks for joining. Shout out to the LinkedIn team. I really appreciate you guys joining. I'll make this pretty quick. It'd be about 15, 20 minutes. This is a free training. If you want to learn how to sell, how sales is changing, this is no charge, no gatekeeping, no sign up. I'm just running you through it right now. Part of this is for me to get familiar with the live broadcast off multiple channels. Part of this is I do classes on the side for fun with a couple different providers. Invictus is farmed out basically as a white label. And in these sales trainings, the question keeps coming up: how does AI change things, and what does it mean to be selling in an AI world? Meaning, how do I have to adapt my sales approach? And you do need to adapt your sales approach. So that's what we're going to run through. For the folks on Insta, I don't have the slides on the deck here available. I apologize. There's only going to be about 3 or 4 of them. Don't worry. If you're on YouTube or LinkedIn, you will see this. So I'm going to share some screen here, and we're going to run through a couple of very quick presentation, and it will give you a better sense of how you can do a better job selling whatever you're selling. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a professional, whatever you're doing. Okay, so right now, selling with emotional intelligence, what does that mean? What is emotional intelligence? What's the takeaway? Emotional intelligence, for those who don't know, it's EQ, right? This is the emotional quotient. It's a sensitivity to the emotional signals of others. When I say that, that means that you have to be able to read other people and also be sensitive to the emotions of not just them, but yourself and how you're impacting them. So your sensitivity to emotion is what this gets at. And in sales, they will not buy from you unless they first trust you. And the way they come to trust you is by getting to know you and like you. This requires an emotional connection. People think sales is about the magical gift of gab, the silver tongue, neurolinguistic language, 48 laws of power. Like if I say the right thing, you're going to buy. That is not how it happens. We have shifted. The world has changed from selling to greed, NFT craze, crypto bros. Like we were all going to get rich back in the day. When you're selling to greed, your pitch is, I'm going to help you make more money. Right? I'm gonna increase your revenue by 30%. You will land more customers. All the crap you're getting pounded with out on Instagram and on LinkedIn these days of these lead gen idiots, like this is the pitch. I'll help you get rich. And that doesn't work in this environment. The macro environment has shifted. If you didn't notice, we're still in a recession. So what ends up happening is you've got to sell to fear, not the greed now, right? The greed was, we're all gonna get rich. The fear is, you're not going to screw up by going with me. In the 1970s, during the great the oil shocks in America, IBM famously rolled out their big pitch was no one ever got fired for bringing in IBM. Right? The whole concept is you're not going to make a mistake by partnering with me and my company. This has got to be your pitch now, some version of that. So instead of we're going to make you money, it shifts into our satisfaction rating is X. 50% of our clients, love the fact that they can do this with us. We have had a long string of success. We've been in business for 30 years. We lead the industry in X. All of this has to do with you're not making a mistake. You're either reducing their risk or you're increasing their opportunity. But in a world of recession, you got to be going with, I'm reducing your risk. So emotional intelligence is a way to do this. Emotional intelligence revolves around a simple concept. You're shifting from business-centric thinking, the thing does this, to customer-centric thinking. Customer-centric is, I'm looking out for you first and foremost. And that might mean you send them away. You don't make the sale on purpose because you're not the best fit for them. And when you tell them that, this is called the damaging admission. I'm not really the one you should be shopping for with. If you're looking for that product feature, we do that. But we're not the best, and I'm not going to lie to you because I'm not going to fool you. However, now what you say after this matters even more. Where we really shine is this. I sparkle in this area. This is the thing I can help you with. And although I don't want to lose your business over there, I'm willing to sacrifice that because I know that you're going to be happier here. That type of customer-centric thinking is very different from the business-centric pound them till they buy. We all get that. We all know that. You can smell that. It's commission breath, right? So number one, sensitivity to their emotions. Number two, you shift your thinking to customer-centric. Number three, buyers base their actions in buying on emotion, and then they backfill with logic. They like you. They like the thing you've got. They want to come and figure out if this is going to be a fit for them. And then over time, they say to themselves privately, okay, I need to be able to justify this upstream. I need to make sure I'm not making a mistake. What's the data? At that point, when they ask you questions like, well, what types of customers do you usually do business with? What's the satisfaction rating? These are buyer questions that's when you roll out your data, and you've got to be prepared. So you base their actions initially on the feeling. This is the EQ we're going to hit in a second. And then you backfill that. You give them the data they need to justify the purchase. Logic. Okay. So all of this means one thing. You must get beyond the product features, your widget, your service, whatever you're pitching, and you speak to the feelings that the end result will bring. I will repeat that. You speak to the feelings the end result will bring. Not, we're going to be able to reduce your churn by 30%. It's, when we reduce your churn by 30%, you don't have to worry so much about where your next customer is going to come from. When we save you money, when we reduce your risk, when we do whatever the thing does, you will feel better in this specific way. And that emotional thing right there, the emotion, is the part that matters. That's what they're going to make the buyer decision based on. And then they're going to go look for the data that you'll provide them. So emotional intelligence is a term they use for being able to connect with somebody emotionally, right? Pretty simple. How do you do it? There's components to emotional intelligence. Sales in general has moved beyond product and into marketing. It's beyond product and marketing. It's beyond all that. It's now moved into customer experience. Your sales success will be driven more by the customer's experience of engaging with you than they will by the features and the widget and whatever you're pitching, right? How you make them feel in the engagement is going to convince them or not. So your skill in the field of human emotion must now match your business expertise. I'll say that again. You got to be better with people than you are with how well you know your thing. It's pretty simple. So emotional intelligence is really nothing other than the emotional component of selling. So emotional intelligence is your potential to influence others. You're like, some people just have it. They can sell ice to an Eskimo, right? You've heard these things. That's the potential. But some people can actually execute that well. Some do it better than others. And that's emotional quotient. So emotional intelligence is your potential to influence others. Emotional quotient is your effectiveness in executing that. So I'll give you an example. Somebody's pretty good with people. Great. But they just fumble it. You've seen this. Like, how did you not close? That person was interested. Other people, they're not the best with folks. However, they can really make other people like them, right? They don't know that they're good at an EQ thing. That's not they weren't trained in it, but they've just got this likability factor. I have a son who's like this. Both of my sons are like this. So my point is, emotional intelligence, it's a skill. It can be learned. It can be like any other skill, just like fitness, just like math. You practice it, you get better at it. All right. There are 4 pillars to emotional intelligence. Number 1, self-awareness. You got to know yourself, folks. You have to identify the impact your emotions have on other people, specifically your prospects. So when you're going into a sales engagement, some situation, could be on a video call, might be in person, doesn't matter. You must be able to identify your own emotional impact, right? You're running late for the meeting. You're stressed. You're frustrated. You're having a fight with your significant other. Your car blew a tire on the way to the appointment, whatever. You need to be able to lock that away, compartmentalize that, put that to the side. So recognize the impact your emotions have on a room. How many people do you know walk into a room and they're just a wet blanket, right? They're complaining, they're negative, and they don't even know it. They're just second nature. They're not aware of that. That is lack of emotional intelligence. So you need to be aware of the impact your emotions have on other people in the room. Number 2, self-management. Great that you know that you're cranky. Can you shut that off? Can you flip yourself out on a dime When I would go visit clients and you'd be at a cocktail hour and you've got 60 minutes to meet 50 hedge fund managers and you want to talk to all 50 of them, but you're only going to get to talk to 10. So you're in conversation with some idiot who's telling you about their tennis game and you're like, gotta end this, gotta move along. Self-management, right? You want to be able to manage your emotion, not be the rude jerk during the engagement. So managing your emotion during customer interaction is pillar number 2. Self-awareness, self-management, they're different. Number 3, social awareness. We now move away from you and your focus on yourself and the ability to manage yourself to others. Social awareness is understanding your prospect's emotion, right? You can read them. You know when it's a bad time to move into this part of the conversation. You know when they want to be done with this conversation. They want to move on. They want to go get a drink. You're keeping them too long. Did I catch you at a bad time? You should never ask that question if you're emotionally aware. So social awareness is your ability to understand the prospect's emotions. Okay. Fourth pillar is the relationship management aspect. You're self-aware, you can manage yourself, you can read the other person, and now you have to be able to influence them. This is about relationship management. Some people can do all of the first 3, but they just can't get the person to come see it their way. You can't force this. You're not going to pound them. You're not going to pitch them. So yeah, Rachel, I see you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Shout out. By the way, if you guys want to drop stuff in the chat, don't be shy. I'm more than happy to turn this into a Q&A. But where I want to go with this is the emotional aspect of influencing others starts with the likability factor. You got to be able to mirror and match them, their language, their mannerisms. I don't mean mock. I mean, they have to be able to feel like they're in alignment with you, feel that you understand them. The connective tissue of what creates emotional intelligence, the ability to influence someone else, starts with, they're my kind of person. I like this. I don't know what it is about Mark, but he's likable. And they won't say that out loud. It's not going to even be in their mind. It'll be in the back, subconscious. And it comes from your ability to connect. You're not pushing. You come from the right approach. They will feel all of that, right? The cool thing about sales, it's not the pitch, push, pound people think it is. The cool thing, hold on a second. Just realized I'm getting requests here to join video. Yeah, Phil, you're more than welcome to join. All right. So for those who care, we're popping people on. Anyway, relationship management, influencing others. Your 4 pillars of emotional intelligence. Number 1, self-awareness. Number 2, self-management. Number 3, social awareness. And number 4, relationship management. Okay. That comes next. How do you spot EQ, right? Out there in the wild. You can basically say low EQ people always have to be right. So you know them. You know these folks. They're oblivious to others' feelings. They blame others for their problems. They don't even realize the impact they're having negatively on other folks. So, what's up, Phil? All right. So anyway, moving on. Low EQ people blame others for their problems because they don't realize that they are oftentimes the source of negativity. High EQ people, on the other side, are going to be very skilled at influencing others, right? They have a strong decision-making skill set generally. That's just on the side. They know how to diffuse external tension because they're in touch with their emotions and with other people's. And so they're very good at managing people. And that doesn't mean manipulating. It means engaging and working with, like interacting with people. So you've got this whole thing around EQ. You're either low EQ or high EQ. You can start out at the one and get to the other. Again, like I said at the start, this is a skill. So how do you do that? You practice. When I was younger, I used to go sit there in Starbucks and try to read people. I kid you not. That person's annoyed at their girlfriend. That person's in a rush. This person is nervous. Then you get into engages with folks one-on-one, and you start to practice these skills. How good am I at reading this person? How good am I at managing my own emotions? Was I able to influence this one? These are questions you should be asking yourself if you want to get good at emotional intelligence. Okay, how do we sell with emotional intelligence? Number 1, you've got to understand the other person first, right? They have to feel understood, and you get there by focusing on their feelings about the problem and not the problem itself. I'm going to say that again. People go into sales situations ready to pound and pitch and get their product front and center. It's not about that. They don't care. They care about their feelings first, about what's happening in their mind. So you must focus on their feelings about the problem. And by that, I mean, they need a CRM. Their billing system is screwed up. Whatever that you're there to sell them, they need your services, mindset coaching, copywriting, sales training, doesn't matter. Content strategy is what I do. They need help with something. And you're not there to sell them the thing. You're there to talk about their feelings about that thing. And by that, I mean, I understand that your content isn't performing well, Mr. Customer. And I'm guessing that it's frustrating because you feel like you're wasting your time creating what you're creating, or you don't really know if you're doing the right strategic move as you put together. Should you be doing carousels? How good is the lives that you're putting out there? Like, I know that you feel like you don't want to waste your time. It's scary because you've got better things to be doing than just making content. That's not your primary. Am I right? No, Mark, the problem is really this. Or yeah, I kind of feel that way. That's funny you say that because they'll tell you. You just got to ask them. So once you've addressed their feelings about the problem and they're clear that you understand them, that's the key. Then you can move to speaking to their business, right? You address the inferiority of the alternate solutions and how their business can benefit after you've addressed the feelings that they themselves have. You remember, there's always a gatekeeper. There's a decision maker in every purchase. If you're dealing small B2C, it's that person. Large B2B, they've got an internal team they've got to convince. It's the same premise though. They have to be able to go back up and say, this is our person that we want to go with and here's why. And all they're going to say at that point is the emotional connection that you made or didn't make. Yeah, the product looked good. Something about the guy though, he seems kind of sleazy. We've all had this conversation. The product looks mediocre, but that guy's amazing. Honestly, I love him. I'm not sure if I want to buy the thing, but I like that guy. It matters how they perceive you, how they feel about you. And that comes off the back of how you get them to recognize you're feeling their thing. You're feeling their pain, right? Bill Clinton. This is an emotional thing. It sounds woo-woo. It sounds foofy. I get it. People are people, though. That's how people operate. You want the operating system to people? It's the emotional map. As I worked in the fintech world, all the quants, finance, Wall Street, they all believe it's about numbers and only numbers, and it's so not, right? There are people who make bad financial decisions because they got emotion in the way, right? I fell in love with the house. It was too much money. I paid it anyway. I just like the house. Happens all the time. My parents bought a house for $150,000, $200,000 cheaper than they should have paid, because the guy that could have sold it could have gotten way more money from a builder, but he didn't want the builder to knock the home down. He wanted it to go to a family. That doesn't make any financial sense. And yet, people make emotional decisions. So when you're selling, you're leading with emotion first. What does that mean? How do we do it? I call this the alpha approach. It's not even my favorite approach. This is an old slide deck, and I'm going to run you through this because it's still relevant. If it's oversimplified in that if you're just starting and you're not familiar with selling emotionally, this is an easy 4-step process, which is why I have it up here. The alpha approach is ALFA. A, acknowledge, L, listen, F, focus, and A, ask. You're going to acknowledge their concerns. I understand why this is, and not just, I get you. You have to echo back to them their exact concerns emotionally, pinpointing what their pain is. I recognize that not having the billing database up to snuff is keeping you at work late. You're not getting to see your wife and family because you're staying the extra hour to do it manually. That must be very frustrating. That's very different from, yeah, you need a new CRM or whatever it is. Acknowledging their concerns means the emotional impact on them. Number 2, you listen. Active listening means you listen to their response and you echo it back to them to make sure you got it right. You don't just listen where you're waiting to talk, or listen where you're looking at your notes, or you're taking notes, even worse. You have to make sure that you hear everything they say because you're going to say it back to them in their words. In their words. If they say, I have a big problem, and you repeat back to them, I understand you have a huge problem. Big and huge are not the same. They seem the same to you, but there'll be a misalignment when the person who said that word, it's not what I said. It doesn't sound like I said it. Even though it means the same thing to you, it won't psychologically to them. And that's all that matters. So yes, you might have intellectually understood the problem, but you echoed it back wrong because you chose the wrong vocabulary word. If they say, do you see what I mean? And you respond, yes, I hear you. Not the same. Seeing and hearing are two different senses. I know it sounds silly, but this is how sales works. So listen to their response. You've got to be able to listen so you can reframe it back to them in your characterization of their words, right? Their words, but you will rephrase it as, if I understood what you said, you have a huge problem because it is costing you time at the end of the day. Do I have that right? And if you don't, they'll correct you. And if you do, they'll be like, that's exactly right, Mark. And then that's your cue to move on. You get the green light, you move to the next step. So you acknowledge, you listen. The F is focus. You are always focused on them. You're focused on them. You're not meandering, like I said, taking notes, looking around the room. You're not thinking somewhere else. What's the next part of this phase I have to move them into? How do I start the closing process? You're not doing that. You are present. You are staring at them in eye to eye so they feel you, that you're there with them. You're right there and you understand. And it's almost like a consultation. Think of it like therapy. If you're their therapist, you're focusing on what they're saying. And ask, ALFA. The ask at the end is when you ask them questions, you're not asking them logic questions, data-oriented questions. You better have already figured all that out before the meeting, or you're not worth your GPT salt. You have to ask emotionally driven questions. How did that make you feel? Why is that frustrating? You want to dig deeper. This is called twisting the knife in sales. You want to get to the pain so they say it to you. Because if I tell you, it must be very frustrating for you that you are not making as much money. It's a very different experience than when you say it. When you say, Mark, it's killing me that I'm stuck at this revenue level. I need to get 30% growth out of this. When you say it, we're closing. When I say it, I'm pitching. Big difference. Nobody wants to be pitched. So you want to get them to say it with emotionally driven questions. The alpha approach, ALFA. You acknowledge their concerns emotionally. You listen to their responses deeply. You focus on them directly, and you ask them emotionally driven questions. And you've got to be authentic, right? This isn't a game where you're just going to go through and check the box, because they know. Everyone knows. We all know when someone's just trying to get to the wallet, right? That's the commission breath. Don't do that. All right. Q&A is open right now. If anybody cares, feel free to drop stuff in the chat. I feel like the purpose of this isn't so much for me to flex here or to just talk and talk. I just wanted to get this out there because as AI comes around, what's going to end up happening, it's already happening, is people are relying on the machinery to do the selling for them, right? Automated outreach, automated engagement through chatbots, automated follow-ups through emails, right down through to the closing. There's a company out right now that has Ava, who's your AI-powered avatar that will conduct the entire go-to-market process from prospecting straight through to the close. No person involved at all. I understand the sales game is changing. I come out of the AI world. That's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with AI in sales, but at some point, content, marketing, selling, it all leads to an interpersonal relationship. It doesn't need to be in person, although it's better if it is. But it interpersonal means you become friends with these people, like they know you. Selling is befriending. I'm going to say that again. When done right, selling is helping. You're making friendships. If you're just going to pitch them and go the transactional route, this is what kills me about these faceless Instagrams. I can AI my content generator and just make sure I'm pumping out enough crap that when you click enough, I can pound you and then 10% close. That's not selling. That's pounding. You want to do that. I'm not saying you can't make money. I mean, you can make money selling drugs in the back alleyway too. People do it. But that's not legitimate business building. You want a legitimate business, trust, loyalty, customers stay with you for 30 years across Wall Street. I worked for major investment banks, and all of them were the same client base. I was at Morgan Stanley, Lehman Brothers, Barclays, dating myself there. I mean, when you're talking about the biggest of the biggest firms, when you're at UBS, and it's the exact same client base, the same exact people, that you were covering 20 years earlier because you started out at Morgan. This is how businesses are built. Relationships matter. It doesn't need to be IRL, but it needs to be personable enough where they're like, you know what? I'm going to stay with this person, provided that your product is reasonably decent and you can be competitive in the marketplace. If they love you, they're staying with you. You can build a business on that, right? I think it's Hormozi. He talks about you stack in 10 customers each month and you lose none. And by month 4, you're at 40. And by month 10, you're at 100. This is what's called scaling, but it comes from relationships, not from automations. Yes, the automations make the admin part easier. Nothing wrong with that. You should be doing that. We'll do a different session on ChatGPT and how you can use these tools. But the reality is the back end of the content / automations / AI is people. And people become more relevant in an AI world. Your relationships matter more when there's an inauthentic barrage of content and no one knows who the hell is real out there. The person who can hop on a live like this, or you can ask a question, or they know you, and they like you, and they trust you. Now you're building a business. All right. That's all I got for you, folks. Thanks. See you next time. Probably be back. Just so for those who care, I'm planning on doing these lives regularly every Thursday. We'll see if I stick with it for a little bit. All right. Peace.